All right. Good night, everybody. Welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. Of course, I'm Rickford Burke here in New York. Everybody share the live. Good to talk with you once more. Get into all your guidance groups and share this link. Share this link on Twitter, Facebook Messenger, on Facebook, in your email, on IG, and WhatsApp, and everything. Get into your guidance groups and share the link. Call your neighbor up. Call your friends up. Let them know Conversation with Rickford Burke is on. It's good to be back. I had like a 2 week hiatus, but it's good to be back. Share the link, everybody. We have two topics we talk about tonight. I want to talk about what happened at Woodley Park and what happened at Golden Grove. At Woodley Park, you had the People's Progressive Party East Indian supporters attacking black students, telling them that they should not come to that school because it's in an East Indian area. segregationism, and that is promoted directly by the government based on its policies and practices and its silence. Silence is complicity. And then at Golden Grove, we will examine what took place at Golden Grove, what the government announced that these young men were wanted for and subsequently charged for. And then we'll examine what happened at Mon Repos. We'll see who are the real terrorists. So share the link, everybody. Get into your Guyana'S groups. Go to my YouTube page, Rickford Burke on YouTube. Subscribe to that page. Go to both of my Facebook pages. Subscribe and like both of those pages. We have to get the truth out because democracy dies in darkness. Share the link, everybody, and we'll be back in just about 60 seconds. Share the link. All right. Again, welcome to Conversation with Rickford Burke. This is Rickford here in New York. Wherever you're watching me from, whether it's in the United States, on the East Coast, good night. On the West Coast, good evening. In Canada, good night. In the Caribbean, good night. In Europe, good morning. Africa, good morning. Asia, good morning. Wherever you're watching from, I hope you're having a good time. So let's get straight into it. I want to make sure that I show you some videos. But before I get to those videos, I want to set this up. Now, the PPP has a new strategy, and I've been talking about it for the longest while. Since they came into power, they have been encouraging their supporters to launch racial attacks on Afro-Guyanese. There's no question about it. They have been encouraging it. They go to the bottom houses in the night and they feed their supporters with false dirt about Black people, about Black leaders, and they teach them to hate. The People's Progressive Party teach their members and teach their supporters to hate Afro-Guyanese. And then their members and their supporters learn this behavior as well from the PPP government policies and from their rhetoric. So when Bar Jagdeos talks about Black people living in basements, he's being racist. When Bart Jagdeo talk about Black people being corrupt and attacking IPADG and Black organizations and saying they're corrupt and they steal money, they're trying to tell their supporters Black people are criminals. So they have cultivated this culture. Keep sharing the link, everybody. They've cultivated this culture within their PPP environment that Black people are criminals and that Black people probably don't belong to Guyana. and that Afro-Guyanese are lazy and we don't want to work. And, you hear this kind of racist bigotry coming from the People's Progressive Party itself and their supporters. Forget about all the little niceties about, oh, we want to make sure the People's Progressive Party is a racist party. They only want to govern the country for their East Indian supporters. That's a fact. It's incontrovertible. They are an apartheid regime. They believe in the physical segregation. They don't believe that they should live among Black communities. They don't believe that a government run by the People's Progressive Party, government of Guyana, should represent the interests of Afro-Guyanese communities. That's why they're starving places like Buxton and Golden Grove and the Backless and West Coast Berbice villages like Litchfield and Belladrum and Ithaca, and then Amstel on the West Coast and Strodeville and Iflot and Dekendron and those Black villages and Linden. And when you go to the Essequibo, Dartmouth and places like that, on the quarantine, Manchester, Liverpool, Alnez, Kindley, Limlear, all those places where Blacks live, New Amsterdam, they're starving them for funds. It is part of an apartheid policy. They believe all the resources of the country should be used for their own little ethnic collective, 39% of the country. Don't forget, East Indians are 39%, Blacks are 30%, the mixed race is 20%, the fastest growing category of the population, the mixed race. And I'm pretty sure at least 60% of the mixed race don't support or doesn't support the PPP. And then you have Amerindians. So the PPP basically is a minority party. They rigged the elections, the 2020 elections, and they still only won by 15,000 votes, one seat. So they've set up a perfect situation in Guyana where I believe their true intent is to segregate the country. The effects, nevertheless, of their racist policies will result, if it continues, in the segregation of Guyana. I believe that. I honestly believe that. At some point in time, Afro-Guyanese will not tolerate PPP racism anymore, and there will be some sort of uprising. That's my prediction. And we will be on a part of Sudan where Sudan was split into two countries because Northern Sudan, which are Arabs, was marginalizing and subjugating South Sudan, which are Christians. They're all Blacks. This is exactly what is happening in Guyana. We have an apartheid regime working to subjugate the Black population and others, Amerindians and East Indians, who don't support them. And so they have been using the police, the crime chief and the police commissioner and the other leadership to bring Black people under subjugation. They're house slaves. They are the Django's. They're the ones in the house passing order. Remember Django Unchained? Samuel Jackson played that role. What's the name again? Is it Stephen? Maybe he was actually calling the slaves niggers. That's the role this police commissioner is playing. And the others around the PPP. They're house slaves. And they're using them to instigate a civil war in Guyana. The PPP is currently doing all it can to instigate a civil war. In the meantime, they're preparing for Armageddon. We have evidence that they're arming the Guyana police force with war weaponry, and they have private security contractors and private security companies who are gun dealers bringing in arms in the country. They're preparing for Armageddon with Black people. There's no question about that. Why else were they bringing these powerful weapons? We saw a whole shipload of weapons on a ship that was bound for Guyana that was arrested in Africa. They said, well, the arms wasn't coming to Guyana. Well, the ship was bound for Guyana. That's what we know. And then one of their favorite business persons is now the company supplying the police force with arms and the GDF, allegedly. That's what we were told. A businessman who's a gun dealer, he has a license to import and export firearms, is now the supplier of arms and ammunition for the GDF. Think about that. The GDF is no longer allegedly procuring their own weapons and ammunition. A PPP businessman, an East Indian, is doing that job. They stopped the army from doing that. And their army is now paying hundreds of millions of dollars to a private citizen to import its arms. So the strategy is to bring the Black population under subjugation, but they're preparing in case there's a rebellion, because no population is going to remain under subjugation without a rebellion. They're preparing by arming themselves. And throughout the society, Afro-Guyanese leaders, East Indian leaders, groups, organizations are discussing racism and the oppression of Blacks. Black leaders are writing letters to overseas organizations, international community. The PPP's response is that, to hell with you, we were elected to govern East Indians only, and so we don't care what you say. We will continue with our racist agenda. Since this government came to power, not once have they met with the Black leaders to try to calm hostilities. Everything they've done was to exacerbate tensions, racial tensions, and hostilities. Everything they've done. They're working to incite a war with Black people in Guyana. At the same time, they're rendering them economically impoverished. You can't get jobs, no contracts, no government contracts. If you don't support the government, your business cannot thrive. Keep sharing the link. So basically, they believe the government, Guyana is a PPP plantation, and Black people are their slaves. I keep saying that. That's important. I'll keep saying it forever until they seize their ways or they get out of power. Cease their racism or get out of power. So this strategy of criminalizing Black people is going one step further every day. Burke is a criminal. Paul Slow is a criminal. Norton is a criminal. Everybody's a criminal. Every Black leader is a criminal for the PPP. And the people who commit the most crimes are in the cabinet. Trust me. In the top tier of the cabinet. You doubt me? How many people were arrested for fraud? In the PPP cabinet alone, you probably have people who were charged with over $2 billion of fraud combined. Check it. Between Ali, Singh, well, Westford is not in the cabinet, Dharmlal, all of these people were charged with hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud. Nanlal, but they want to create the impression to the world that Black people in Guyana are criminals. A play from the Jim Crow KKK Republican racist playbook. And so as soon as they came into power, they tried to outlaw protests. Anybody who's protesting now is arrested. Fast forward to Quindon Bacchus murder. The police killed Quindon Bacchus. The Guyana police force killed Quindon Bacchus extrajudicially. Since this government came back into power, they have started to kill Black people extrajudicially. They killed Oren Boston in Escribo. Why? Because some PPP supporters apparently complained to the government that Oren Boston was taking away the business. So they sent the squad team up there and he was murdered. That's all we know. And if it wasn't for and the government lied when he was murdered. The government said he attacked the police. There was a confrontation and he was shot. Not true, he was killed in his sleep. Then they killed Kevin Andrews at Grove. And they said, oh, he was firing at the police. Investigation found the man had no weapon. Fast forward, and plus there's some others they killed. I think Peter Headley. There are a lot of others that they killed. Not forgetting the over 1,000 that they killed in their previous administration under Barry Jagdale. Then they came to Quindon Bacchus, where Quindon Bacchus was murdered. And the PPP government and the police force knowingly issued 3 false statements about the murder. First, he was a drug dealer or whatever he was doing, selling guns or whatever. He saw the police, he ran, they pursued him, he shot them. Next thing you know, they said, oh, no, that's not true. Well, they didn't even say not true. They just issued another story. Oh, he was a arms dealer and the police was about to buy in a sting operation, the police was supposed to buy a gun and he recognized the police and he started firing. They fired and shot him back. Lie. Video surveillance then surfaced showing that they pursued him. They tried to set him up. The police officers and him have beef, at least one. And that beef started weeks before at a bar at Melanie. And then he set up to kill the boy. All the top level people at Special Branch participated in the planning. Whether they were misled or not, they participated in the planning. And they went to Golden Grove, Nabaclis, Haslington area, and they killed Quindon Bacchus. They executed a young father. And the police force tried to cover it up. And the people rebelled. The people rose up and said, no, we want justice. And demanded an investigation. And every time Black people do that, months after the police come back with a revenge. They did the same thing in the Henry Boyce case. PPP supporters murdered Joel and Isaiah Henry at number 5 Village, West Coast, Belize. And because the people protest and expose the police corruption, they went and charged a member of Joel and Isaiah's family with murder of somebody else, framing people. They're now doing the same thing in Golden Grove. They're now doing the same thing in Golden Grove. They've gone back now, and because they want revenge on the village, they put out a wanted bulletin for 12 young men. I understand that a bulletin was issued for one person twice under different names. And then they arrested these young men and charged them with inciting public terror. It is an intimidation of Black people from protesting against racism and police injustice. That's what they want to do. And they could have gone to these young men's homes and find them and said, we want to talk to you, come to the police station. No, because they want to abuse their powers. They put out wanted bulletin. Everything is a wanted bulletin. Everything is a wanted bulletin. And help me, if when these bunch of criminals in the PPP come out of power, if the PNC and whichever party, coalition, whatever, gets into power, Don't hunt every one of them and jail them. That coalition government or whatever government does not belong in power. If they're not going to pursue justice against the PPP, and just like Anil Nanlal said that people will have to run out of the country, if they don't follow the exact footsteps of the PPP, they don't deserve to have power. That's my view. So they put out wanted bulletins because they wanted to go to court to argue that these young men must not get bail. They're dangerous. These young men who are Christians and fathers and working men, they're so dangerous. They're terrorists. They're terrorists. These young men were arrested last Wednesday. They held them Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 5 days in violation of their constitutional rights. 5 days, and then they took them to court on Monday. This is the PPP government that talks about democracy. They want to inflict as much pain and suffering on them as possible. Then they have the audacity to go to court and say, magistrate, these men are criminals, they're terrorists. Don't let them out on bail. Well, I've seen some of the evidence that police officers sent me. And there's not one iota of evidence. I can tell you tonight, and I will release the evidence. You guys know I will release the evidence. There's not one iota of evidence that these young men committed any crime. You know what the court documents say? The court documents say that these men started a riot and they were using sticks as instruments. That's what they're charged with, using sticks to create a riot. They have they just saw people's faces on videos. People from Golden Grove. Well, I used to live in Golden Grove as a child because my father was stationed at Cove and John Police Station. And I know some of these people that they're talking about. And they know that I know some of the people they're talking about. And I could show the Guyana police force that we're going to go after them and expose their hypocrisy, their criminal conduct, and their corruption. We will release the evidence right here. But before I do that tonight, I'm not going to do that tonight. They said that these people at Golden Grove started a riot with sticks. And that's terrorism. Anytime you're black and you protest, you're a terrorist. I'm going to play a video later on tonight to show you which political party in Guyana really pal around and give aid and comfort and participate with terrorists. But these are black young men. And because they're participated in a process, they want to target them. And they want to brand them like they did Mark Benchcop as terrorists. Because they're black. They're black. They're automatically profiled by these East Indian racists in the PPP. And I'm not saying all East Indians are racist. I'm talking about those in the PPP. As black criminals. Like the KKK. They're Jim Crows. As we like to say here, Jim Crow, Jim Crow died with during the civil rights era in America. But like some of them escaped and went to Guyana and dwell with the PPP. And they raised them up and now they're mature adults. And they're starting up little Jim Crow movements in Guyana in the PPP and they're in the government. Just now they boldly form a KKK club. But let us really see who were the terrorists during the Quindon Bacchus protests. And let's go to Mon Repos. I'm going to share my screen. My technical guy, I don't know, the chair is empty here. So I'll have to, oh, let me see if I can share my screen here for a minute. Good. All right, share screen. All right, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, but let me see here. This is obviously not working. Let me go back here. Okay. Okay, so that's not the right video. That's not the right video. Let's try again. Okay, good.
What? Then people there, you know. People there, you know. Hey, man! Man, do yeah. Gone.
So I'm not sure if you guys saw that properly, but I'm trying to get it wider. These are East Indian PPP supporters at Mon Repos pouring gas on a vehicle and saying people will die. Right?
Hey, what gas? What? Then people there, you know. People there, you know. Hey, man!
I'm
Man,
seeing
do it, let's
cutlasses,
go.
I'm seeing guns.
Yeah. Daddy boss gone, bye. Gone. Fully gone.
All right. I think there's also another video. Let's go to the videotape.
Hey, what gas?
Oh, this is the same one. Right, let me move this. Cutlasses, one man in there with a gun. cutlass, cutlass, bottles, gun. Those are PPP supporters at Mon Repos. They had guns, they had gasoline to burn stuff, they had cutlasses, they had sticks. Were any of these people arrested? No. That's because the Guyana police force, the leadership of the Guyana police force, does not believe the law applies to East Indian supporters of the PPP. There's no question about that. Let the government produce videos like those with the black boys, the young black men from Golden Grove doing that. And I could tell you that there's none. There's absolutely none. With those men that they arrested from Golden Grove, throwing gasoline on vehicles and burning them, brandishing guns on the streets, blocking the traffic, turning over vehicles, and brandishing cutlasses and threatening that people will die. If that's not terrorism, then what is terrorism? But you know what? No, they're PPP supporters. They're above the law. They're supreme. East Indian superiority reigns for the people at Mon Repos. The law doesn't apply for them. The law applies to those black people who the PPP teaches their supporters to hate. And they're using the Guyana police force. The PPP government is using the police force to incite a riot, an uprising in Guyana by black people so they can shoot them down. They're going back to Golden Grove to purposefully incite unrest by arresting these young men for absolutely nothing but revenge, because they force accountability and expose the corruption and the murderous conduct of police officers with whom this government is complicit in the killing of black people, because they try to cover up. The government tries to cover it up every time they do it. The police shot a reporter at Golden Grove and her son. Has anyone been held accountable for that? No. Has there been an investigation? No. Why? Because she's black. You think those black police officers who don't understand that they're house slaves to the PPP and they're only using them, and that it was the same Bar Jack there who they're protecting now, who said they're criminals and rapists, and if the black government, the APNU government, which you describe as black, gets back into power, that fully armed, the people from the security services will break into East Indian homes and rape their daughters. That's what the PPP believe, police officers of Guyana. They don't have respect for you. They don't have respect for the army because they're hustling to put an East Indian colonel above two other colonels as head of the army. They're doing the same thing for the Guyana Fire Service. They can't deny it. It's on video. PPP supporters in Mon Repos committed terrorism, real terrorism, burning vehicles, pouring gasoline on vehicles, turning vehicles over, brandishing weapons and threatening to kill people, including guns and machetes and cutlasses. Not one arrested, not one bulletin. Let's play the video again.
Hey, what gas? What? Then people dead here now. People dead here now. Hey, man! Man, do that, not good. Yeah. Daddy boss gone, bye. Gone. Fully gone.
And yet another video. Did you guys see black people there? Not one. Not one. Not one. But they went to Golden Grove to round up black people. That is, they started the protests. Some of the people even start protests. And then you guys will remember bad settlement. When the Elections Commission Region 4 returning officer first declared the APNU coalition had once, let me repeat that. Once the Region 4 returning officer announced the initial results that showed that the coalition was ahead in the election result count, the PPP sent out their supporters on the East Coast and the bad settlement on the West Coast of Barbados to riot. They chopped police officers. One was shot and killed. Police officers were running for their lives. They fire no shot in the crowd. They fire no tear gas. Them police run from them PPP East Indian supporters. Them same black police officers, because they know that they dare not treat PPP East Indian supporters like they treat black people, shoot them with pellets. They can't do it because they'll be punished. They ran like clowns and fools. But hey, the black people in Golden Grove and Buxton and so on, oh, shoot those dogs down like Bull Connor. Shoot them down and kill them. We the PPP, we're supreme. We hate black people. Kill out all those black dogs. Shoot them. That's how they act when they give police instructions. Shoot down black people. Arrest them. One person was shot and killed. And that was because the police officer had no choice. The police officer was going to be killed. They assaulted nurses and school children, destroyed public property, destroyed the buses, the school buses, broke up the hospital. Not one arrested. But them black people at Golden Grove, you dogs? To the PPP, you're dogs. I'm not calling you dogs. I'm telling you how they think of you. And so they arrested these young men and they placed them before the court at Sparndam. And in court, they're asking for time to gather evidence. They arrested these young men, held them for 5 days against the Constitution. And then they had the audacity to go to court and ask the judge for more time to gather evidence. They had no evidence. And said, Judge, these men are so dangerous, you must remand them to prison. They're from Al Qaeda. They live in homes with Saddam Hussein and bin Laden. You must remand them. That's what they asked the magistrate. Magistrate, no, guys, I'll put you on bail and go home. Even the magistrate knows bullshit. Even the magistrate knows what they have done there was bullshit. Excuse my German. But that's how contemptuous they are of black people. They want to start a war. They want a civil conflict so that they could divide the country. That's their objective. They want to divide Guyana. They want to divide Guyana by race. And Guyanese should oblige. If they want to take their supporters and go and live on Hog Island, let them do that. But black people must not be subjugated and subject themselves to an apartheid regime that is the most racist, brutally racist, and violently oppressive in the Western Hemisphere. That's the PPP. On top of that, they're corrupt. They're the most corrupt. You have a vice president that was sitting in his basement, so low class and low level, negotiating a 500,000, $500,000 US bribe with people who he thought was a Chinese, were Chinese business people. And they calling black people criminals. These same set of people that murdered, assassinated hundreds of people with impunity and have not yet faced justice. Murderers, killers, criminals, drug dealers. They're calling black people criminals. Money launderers, gun smugglers, and people who send money to Hezbollah. People in the PPP circles send money to Hezbollah. The proceeds of their drug running and gun running and money laundering, they send to Lebanon to finance the Hezbollah terrorist organization. And them they say, these PPP guys who do all of that are calling black people terrorists and criminals. They funded international terrorism. Let me say, so the United States Justice Department issued a report that says that. You had people in the PPP who were partners with Roger Khan. Roger Khan alone went to jail. They're in the cabinet now calling black people criminals. Serious business here. But I'll revert. I'll come back to that. Maybe Sunday. I want to deal with Woodley Park. Woodley Park on the West Coast, Bubbies, where East Indian adults from the neighborhood attacked young black school children who were going to the secondary school at Woodley Park in Region 5. Attacked them, beat them violently, assaulted them, say they mustn't come to Woodley Park, it's an Indian area. They reported to the police, there was no response from the police. When it comes to the East Indian community, the police is like, oh no, we can't touch them. They didn't show up, they didn't park up in front of nobody's house, they didn't harass people like they do to black people. Black police officers on instructions do that to black people. No, it was hands off. These are PPP East Indian, they're superior to us. We cannot touch them. These are gods. These Indian people from the PPP, no, we can't touch them. In the meantime, they're endangering the welfare of children. They're assaulting children, threatening and harassing school children. And the government has done nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Zilch. Contempt for Black people. After we started to expose this issue, then they put out some stupid statement. Not even the Guyana police force. No wanted bulletin. No wanted bulletin by the police force. Police force is silent. The puppets at CID headquarters, like Blanham, and the clown who's occupying the police commissioner chair, silent. Zilch. We cannot say anything. Those are PPP East Indians. They are supreme to us. And the people they have assaulted are Black people. Oh, in the eyes of the government, they're nobody. They're just like animals. So, you know, we don't have to say anything or put out any wanted bulletin. No, we don't do that. We only do that for Black people. They're so transparently racist and corrupt. Nothing. They put out one statement saying some one man was arrested. We don't even know if that's true. And that came from the Ministry of Home Affairs. And they only did it after we exposed their hypocrisy. And their videotapes. Their videotapes. But of course, enforcement of the law only applies to Black people. Let me show you one of the videotapes. East Indian PPP supporters preventing Black children from going to school at Woodley Park. No word from the Ethnic Relations Commission. No word from the president. No word from Jack Dale, the chief apologist and the chief racist. No word from him. He's probably applauding them. Yeah, you all did well. Yeah, Indian people chase Black people from school. Jack Davies going to go on critics and praise them. Yes, not a word. Prime Manager, silent. She's the Minister of Education, who likes to use school children as props because she has nothing better to do. She has no policies. She has no ability to conceptualize anything for the education sector. Shallow. She's silent. Oh no, we can't say anything because those are our supporters. And if we only tell them not to assault Black people, they will not vote for us. That's their calculation. Let me play the video again. I want to say to the people at West Coast Bobbies, the good people at West Coast Bobbies, the Black people at West Coast Bobbies, don't be intimidated. Send your kids to school and defend your kids. Let us have a Brown versus Board of Education moment here. This PPP tribe, this cult that is present in Guyana and in government wants to roll back want to roll back progress in Guyana. But they should know that people like Coffee and Damon and others defeated slavery. West Coast Bobbies, this is your moment to defeat PPP racism. Send your kids to school. Send your kids to school. And if the police and the Ghana Defense Force that the PPP brings out to protect the East Indian interests whenever they're protests, if they refuse to protect your kids yourself by all means necessary. You have that right. Because the government has failed to protect children. You had adults with weapons. Adults with weapons. Adults with weapons beating up and assaulting little black kids. Not even a police vehicle or officer came to protect them. No, we can't come there. They're East Indian supporters. We will lose our jobs. I imagine that's the response they got when they called the police station. Shame on the commanding officer in Region 5. Shame on the other officers who did not protect those children. Shame on the Minister of Education. Shame on the police commissioner. But he ain't got no shame. I take back that. He ain't got no shame. Or he's so short, I guess when shame was passing, pass over he. Guyana is at a precipice. The government and their supporters are inciting a civil conflict. As far as I'm concerned, they have an objective, an agenda, and it's to segregate the country. They're doing it through their policies now. If there is a civil conflict, it will be physically segregated and politically segregated. That's the objective of the PPP. And before I close, I want to share a video of a history of the PPP in Guyana. Let me see if I find that video. All right, I think I got it. Let me see.
Jagdeo urged supporters to harass, menace, and attack. The PPP's history of violence, racism, and terrorism in Guyana is well established. They killed hundreds of black citizens and burnt their homes during the civil war they incited from 1961 to 1964, and bombed the Son Chapman Linden Ferry, killing 43 black men, women, and children. Later, Bharat Jagdeo's regime formed death squads that killed over 1,000 black young men. During the 2020 election saga, Jagdeo urged supporters to harass, menace, and attack President David Granger and his ministers.
When the ministers of Granger or Nagamoto come here, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, free up the country. They're going to face a different situation right across the country.
Threatened that there will be no peace in Guyana.
If they think that they can have the kind of peace that we have now, they're wrong, very, very wrong.
it sent a PPP gang member to threaten to kill President Granger and his cabinet. Irfan Ali and a gang of PPP hooligans attacked then Foreign Minister Dr. Karen Cummings and tried to overturn her vehicle. Anil Nanlal threatened to kill journalists and to run Afro-Guyanese citizens out of Guyana.
It's the same American doorstep they will have to run. It is the same CARICOM that they will have to go through. It is that they will not have repercussions, and they live in some insular world that they are insulated. Well, they will learn bitterly.
Everybody does have a newspaper to use as a weapon. I told Adam, I said, Adam, people got weapons. Right? They don't got newspaper to use as a weapon. They got weapons. And when you continue to attack people like that, and they have no way of responding, they will just walk with their weapon into the same fucking Safan Street office, and what comes to do? And innocent Peter will not pay for fucking parliament. I tell you innocent, I tell you honestly, man to man, that's what happens.
This is a protest and a struggle against racism and injustice, and this is what we are working to eliminate.
The PPP, murderous, oppressive, ruthless, racist, violent, bad for Guyana.
These are the people that are calling black people terrorists. It requires no further comment. Requires no further commentary. Thank you for listening. Have a good night.